Welcome back to the PreVetted Podcast, where we spotlight extraordinary people and remarkable talent reshaping our world. Our guest today is Christa Guglielmelli. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Yes. She is the powerhouse CEO behind Magnificent events and incentives. She has over 2 decades of experience in hospitality, event planning, and sales. Krista has turned her passion into a thriving business that specializes in unforgettable weddings, impactful corporate events, and exclusive incentive travel. She had led award-winning teams, managed iconic venues, and inspired future professionals throughout her leadership roles in the industry and associations. Hello, Krista. How are you doing today?
Well, thank you so much for that amazing introduction. It's an honor to be on your podcast today.
I'm super excited to have you on the podcast today. So let's start by I wanted to ask you about what inspired you to start Magnificent events.
That's a wonderful question. At the time, I was in college and I'd gotten kicked out of college for academic disqualification. And I said, you know what? I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I don't need a degree. Forget it. I decided to go back because at the time I was married and I had stepchildren that I wanted them to see somebody that actually finished. I had 3 boys and a girl, and I wanted her to see really just finishing just to finish. And so I went back to school. I found hospitality as the degree. And before I graduated, I decided, hey, if I start this company and people hire me for baby showers or birthdays, like I'm pretty good at this. So, you know, that's what I started it for. But honestly, I never even did that book of business. My first paid client was one of my professors. We did an international conference. And then my second paid client was an organization that I was a part of for a long time. And they passed their event to me, which was a 1,000-person corporate event that traveled to different locations every single year. And so I never did baby showers and birthdays, and I still don't do them actually. So but that's how the business got started. I wanted to be in hospitality. I tried to get jobs at certain places and always felt like I wasn't qualified enough for whatever the job was. And it was obviously God had a different plan for me, that I was supposed to be an entrepreneur. And so here we are, 16 years later. The company is what it is, and it's really exciting.
Interesting. What do you define a world-class event?
World-class event. Well, perfect example is one event that we did with a professional cricket player, Rohit Sharma, and it was out here in the Bay Area. They flew him out to launch this cricket practice place. And when I arrived at the venue, the gentleman who had called me showed me a warehouse. And he said, this is what I want to turn it into. This is what we want to do. And so world-class event, because we really transformed a warehouse into a red carpet, 6-figure celebrity worthy event with over 400 attendees in about a week's time. And so those are the type of world-class events that I put on, things that really people don't imagine they can do. And all I tell them is, hey, with a little bit of money, we can kind of do anything. Really
Nice.
putting together, classy events, let alone, some of the weddings I've done have been super high end, 6 figures for local celebrities here in the Bay Area. So those are just a couple of them. I mean, it's not all the time, but it's nice to say that there's a handful of them in there as my client base.
Right. Interesting. I just come back from today. I'm in San Francisco. Actually, I'm in downtown. Usually I live in Guadalajara in Mexico, but I fly here very frequently. I was at a floor 17 LinkedIn building,
Mhm.
and they were organizing an event, co-working lunch event. And I wanted to mention it because it reminded me of the type of events that you do, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Of course, this is a whole different thing because this was a low budget, little thing, right? That just 2 people organized, but it was the place is beautiful. They have a view to the Bay Area, to the river, and yes. Anyway, they are doing a great job, and they are organizing this co-working / lunch events to do networking.
And that's one of the reasons I got into the industry is I love bringing people together. So, whether it was something that I was putting on personally or, just working with other people, but my thing always goes back to the guest experience. So, whether or not you attended that luncheon, you are a perfect example of a guest experience because you're seeing it put on and it's like, oh, it's really cool that they're doing something, right? You're bringing people together under the event space. And I used to be part of another company that was in network marketing, and they always used to say, service to many leads to greatness. In their space, it was we're serving people by selling them this product, right? But I took that quote with me in what I do, and it's like not life changing, to plan an event for somebody, but at the same time, it is one of the many life events, right? Generally speaking, with a wedding or like that event for the cricket, that was a paramount for their business to take off. And so, I always think now that it's like I've served a lot of people, and so I feel like inevitably there's some greatness in there that I'm due. So, I just wanted to mention that since you talked about that event, client experience, guest experience, that's really what we look at.
Yes, I think that, you kind of generate the space and the environment for people to connect and have a wonderful time. It's what I, my experience when I've been uh, hosting events is that if everything goes well, it becomes transparent, right? People don't realize it, right? But
Hmm.
if a little thing goes wrong,
Yeah.
people complain, and that's kind of what they stick in their mind. It's like
Hmm.
you can have the best venue in the world, but if the food was cold, then that kind of ruins the whole experience, right? And
Hmm.
people are going to remember that.
Yep. I unfortunately am the worst person to invite to an event. And I openly say that now because I can't go anywhere and not have the eyes of a planner. I went to a function the other day that was a pretty expensive ticket. And what I thought about it going into it was not quite what it was when I got there. And so I kept taking mental notes of like, oh, I would have done this better, this better, this better, and really, again, thinking of the guest experience, for me, it was the coat check being all the way in the back of the room. Like you check in here and then you have to walk all the way through with all your stuff. And then when you got to coat check, it was literally a rack with like 13 hangers. And it was a cool night in San Francisco. So everybody's out there with like fur coats and different things, it was a classy event. And I just thought that was a big fail. And like who didn't think of that? So I can't get it out of my head. I keep trying to find who put the event on so I can tell them they need to hire me next year just to make it that much better. So anyway, maybe they're listening today and they'll find me. I don't know.
Yes, yes. I hope they listen and do better.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. What is the most memorable event that you ever planned?
Oh, that's interesting because I forget about some of the events, and my partners that I hire remind me. Like my photographer reminded me of the cricket event. I was like, oh, I forgot we did that one. I would say though, probably my first large wedding that was also a celebrity wedding for a local celebrity that now has more locations across the country. But his wedding was full of celebrities. There were, a lot of factors to consider, but honestly, everything that could have went wrong that day did. But what was awesome is that they didn't know it. And what I mean by that is, before they hired me, they had picked the Palace of Fine Arts in San Francisco and the San Francisco Zoo. And they hired me and did their wedding, and their wedding was booked for January. Then they brought me on to like put it all together. And it was raining that morning. We had the fire marshal there. The chairs were all wet. Grandma got left at the hotel. The limo took off without her. When we got to the zoo, somebody hit a pole and the power went out. And, it was all these things that it was just like, just this can't be happening. But it wasn't until I think 3 weeks later when they came back from their honeymoon, they called me and they said, oh my God, we just heard about all the things that happened on the back side. And it was like that'll always go down as one of the best things because it was a testament to one, why you hire a planner, testament to myself for handling it. But then to put in the factor of having, former Warrior players there, the guy from Man versus Food was there, like all these different celebrities that, you want everything to go off well, but yet you can only control what you control, but nobody else noticed apparently. So, that'll always be one of the best ones.
Right, it becomes this who is a better captain, right? The one that went through the storm on the one that avoided entirely.
Yeah,
But then
exactly.
the passengers are going to say it was lovely, all went through, right? So hello,
Sorry for our guests joining today.
it's all good, no problem at all. And when they don't see all the misses, all the misses of that you save the day multiple times and they don't see it, right? until they do, right? Until they
Yep.
realize it.
That wedding ended up in the San Francisco Chronicle, and I actually had to do the article for them because they couldn't reach the couple after the wedding. They called me like, "Hey, we heard you're their planner. We're trying to wrap up this story. Can you give us some details here?" So that was pretty funny. But that'll always go down as one of my favorites for sure.
Nice, nice. Yeah. And that place is beautiful.
Yeah.
The Palace of Fine Arts, it's amazing. I've been there a few times and it's great.
Yeah. It's more beautiful in the summertime. January, maybe not the best time, but we've still pulled it off.
Can you walk us through the process of planning a destination event?
So when it comes to planning a destination event, first thing that comes to mind to do is to think about where everybody's going to be traveling from and whether or not they have access to get there. And what I mean by that is, there are some people that can't get passports, don't have passports, there's different reasons. And so thinking about who's attending and is it going to be a place that everybody can participate in? Or is it something that's going to X out a certain amount of people? The second thing to think about is the budget that people have. So that cuts off a lot of places that you can take them. Obviously, we know that certain places in Mexico are less expensive than trying to go to Europe or these other places. And so thinking about that, and then also, again, back to the experience that you want people to have. Whenever I plan an event, I always look at the logistical pieces around it, like air travel, how far is it going to be? If we're doing something in Barbados, for example, people from the East Coast, much easier. West Coast, they're losing an entire day. So really thinking about what's the reason that we're doing it, what's the outcome that we want, and then those other logistical factors, again, passports, budget, ease of access, things like that, because you never want to put an event on and somebody says, "Oh my God, I never want to do that again because it took me a day and a half to get there." Unless it's really worth it when you get there. Obviously, if you're going to Europe and you're giving them this great experience and they're there for 10 days and you've packed it full of stuff, well, then they don't care. It took them a day to get there.
Yeah, and if they have clear expectations, then they know what they're getting into, right? And then,
Exactly.
yeah, I think that having clear expectations and being able to exceed those expectations, that makes the experience much more rewarding for the guests.
Yep, absolutely.
What do you think are now the most popular destination?
Costa Rica is like the number one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, everybody. Costa Rica. I've been to Costa Rica. Okay. It obviously hit the map somewhere as an affordable destination. And when Cuba opened up, that was another spot that going to Havana that everybody was like, "Oh, gotta go." Depending on what you're doing. I mean, I still think the Caribbean is still great for people. Puerto Rico is also for those of us that are, West Coast or just in North America alone. Puerto Rico is still a great place to do an event. So there's certain places that just have a little bit more that they can give. Going international again is more specific to certain groups. And so places like Iceland, I've heard popping up on the map, Finland, some places that it's like, oh, I would have never thought to go there, but there's always something to offer somewhere. And obviously including like cultural elements when people do get there so that, you really feel like they have an experience. My favorite place is Barbados. I don't know. It's like I've gone there a number of times. And so I send a lot of my groups there. Barbados, Cabo San Lucas, those are two of my favorite destinations. I think Cabo San Lucas just because it's easy for those of us here, California based, to just right down. But, I like to go to places that I know we're going to be able to more or less kind of control the movement. You never want to take people somewhere that they're going to be terrified when they walk out of the airport or that they hear things are happening. And I won't mention certain places where things are happening, but we all know there's places that don't get a good reputation. That's not somewhere you want to take people. Like I had an event in Puerto Rico. It was booked before Hurricane Maria happened, which was in 2000, I think it was in 2016 or something, or 2017. My event was in 2018, I believe. Anyway, it hit and our numbers dropped for those that were going to attend because people were watching the news and it's saying, hey, they're still out of power. So I actually had to fly out a couple months ahead of our event and shoot some videos of here's the airport, here's San Juan where we're staying. And I had to show people that it's okay to come here. And then I also had to explain to them that when you go there, you're actually benefiting the people in that area. So it's like, we actually want to take our tourism there so that we can spend money so that we can, we ended up doing like a give back where we took, toiletries and different things like that and had a local nonprofit pick them up. But that was us making a positive social impact by taking people to an area like that was getting, kind of not a bad reputation, but was getting bad publicity from what had happened. So
Interesting. Interesting. You mentioned Cabo. I went to Cabo a few years ago, and we did a whole different experience because we were camping throughout all the places, beautiful places. But we tried to combine between camping on the beach, which is beautiful, but it was too hot, so it was kind of wearing, with going to hotels, right?
Mm.
And one of those days, we're able to, I would say, sneak in, but you know, we but we creatively were able to get into Waldorf Astoria,
Uh-huh.
because one of the members of our group was her birthday. So we kind of used that to get a special treatment,
Nice.
and we were able to sit down at the restaurant, and they have the southernmost point of Cabo, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we were able to step on the southern rock,
Mm-hmm.
and then that was kind of the end of our journey because we started from Tijuana and we drove all the way down to Baja
Oh,
to Cabo,
okay.
right?
Yeah.
So that was kind of the celebration of the journey completed.
Yeah, nice.
With all the after camping, you arrive to this place and it's such a contrast that
Yeah.
it's it's beautiful. It's a beautiful experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So we kind of organize our trips ourselves to do those type of things, right? And
Yeah.
we went to Valle de Guadalupe, which is they have lots of wine.
Mm-hmm.
For us, the venue becomes the whole continent,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep,
Yes, yes.
exactly.
And a lot of things can go wrong, right? Which usually happens, and we have to work around that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's why I don't do a lot of individual travel, even though I'm technically a travel agent. I have somebody I pass it to just because I'm like, there's so many factors. But I mean, I do honeymoons, and I have had a few that, well, it's only really one that stood out where they forgot to check their passport, even though I repeatedly said, check it to make sure it's not expired. And so this couple actually was leaving. I think if he called me on the Sunday, they were supposed to fly out on Tuesday, and they said, we realized the passport is expired. What can we do? So I pushed their reservation back by a day. And then with all this research, we found that if you fly to Puerto Rico, there is an area in Puerto Rico that you can get a same day, like within an hour renewal of a passport. So they flew to Puerto Rico. Yeah. And then changed their flight and flew from Puerto Rico to Barbados. And they only, again, we pushed their reservation back by like a day. So, they didn't lose time, but that was crazy. I mean, it was like the amount of research we did. They were trying to buy flights to different places. They, said DC can do it and Virginia, but then when you actually call, that wasn't the case. Anyway, it's creative problem solving is kind of part of the industry too. And I pride myself on that. That, that's my superpower is being able to solve problems without looking like it's a problem. If you see me in the middle of a moment where it might be crashing, I'm going to look the same. In the inside, I might be panicking, but here I'm going to look the same because that's what I do. So, you know,
Yes, because guests are going to look at you. If you look nervous, they're going to feel nervous.
exactly. That's exactly it.
Yes. Amazing. Let's talk a little bit about corporate events. What do you think are the biggest challenges on planning a corporate event?
The corporate event challenges as of late are the appearance of spending money. That since the pandemic, there's been a lot of concerns from corporations wanting to be a little more closed with their money, kind of keeping things a little bit tighter. And then also the appearance of just being like more frivolous with it. I feel like the pandemic was when that really shifted, where before, you spent $100,000 on just a party for your people and alcohol and food and just a good time. Nobody really batted an eye at it. But now it feels like there's pushback on, wow, was that a responsible way to do that? Was that what they should have been doing during these, hard economic times? Or so I think everybody's being kind of looked at in a way that they're taken into account for things that are happening in the world that have nothing to do with them. But it's just sort of the nature of people now. Like we're all trying to be a little more conservative, a little more reserved. So I see a lot of corporate events that they're not happening, but the ideas are happening, meaning we're getting the RFPs for it, we're getting the requests for creating something, and then the execution isn't there because they go, oh, well, we were told by whomever that that's too much. It's not the right time to do that. That's what I feel is kind of one of the challenges that's happening right now. They're just not coming back the same way still quite yet. And, with politics and the way things are going, that is a factor when it comes to corporate events, again, because you don't want to be looked at as a company that is not doing the right thing.
Right, right. I wanted to ask you about what is incentive travel and why you think it's a powerful business tool.
Yep. So incentive travel is exactly what it sounds like. It's incentivizing people with a travel experience. And so a lot of times it'll be hitting a sales goal, whether that's bringing in a certain amount of money, certain amount of clients. Generally, it's open to the person that won and a plus one. And why I think it works is that everybody wants experiences. So the driving people with just saying, hey, you'll get a bonus check is like, that's fine. But it's like the incentive experience also allows them to show other people what they can do. So a lot of network marketing companies use it, a lot of companies in sales, a lot of companies that are recruiting based, meaning they're always looking to bring on more of a sales force. They use that because it now is something that they can say, I didn't just get a bonus check, but I got to go to Iceland, Finland, Italy, Rome, and they do these experiences that they wouldn't normally people wouldn't normally do. And what I mean by that is that you're at an experience with maybe top 20 people, maybe the top 100 people. You're there with people that are in essence your friends, your colleagues. So not only are you bonding, but you're also having this mutual experience. So a lot of times the outcome of an incentive trip is that you've now created a bigger community within your sales team. And so those that didn't reach that level, not only do they go back and tell them, hey, here's why you want to, but now you've got kind of a little silo or like a subculture that's created because this group had this experience together. So, the shared experience is a memory that is something that sits with people longer than just, a bonus check or a holiday party or, what have you. But to that point, holiday parties and things like that, the reason that companies need to keep doing them is that same reason, right? It's the bringing people together, it's the bonding, it's the shared story, where it's like at one time he told me that one story at that one holiday party, and I remember that guy. So it's the power of
Right.
events.
You had to be there kind of feeling.
Yes, exactly. Yep, yep, yep.
Yes, yes. And if you haven't been there, you're not part of the cool group, right?
The cool kids. Yep,
The
exactly.
cool kids, yes. Yeah. And that's is very powerful.
Mhm. Yep, it works wonders on sales teams. I mean, even with our company being a small business, I take my team out to dinner certain times, get them gifts certain times, and it's like it creates that loyalty too, rather than just saying like, "Hey, you're my employee, so of course you want to come to work." It's like, no. The flip side is always showing people that you appreciate them in some manner, and it can be a littlest thing of like, "Hey, for this event, I'm going to pay for your parking." Like, oh wow, it's $20, but those things sit differently with people, and I think that that is a unique impact that we have as small businesses and as entrepreneurs is like the interpersonal lives that we're able to touch that are different than, for example, if you work for, I don't know, let's just name a giant company. I guess we won't name it, but just a giant company. And you never really get the chance to even meet your boss, know your boss. And a lot of times in the traditional roles, there's a lot of hierarchy where people forget to bring the humanity in. And so it's like, I'm your director and I'm your boss. So you're going to listen to me. But at the same time, they're not feeling seen as actual people because of this chain of command. And so I love being an entrepreneur, and I love the people that I have the opportunity to bless with an opportunity, because it's like I'm impacting their life differently. They don't have to be here for me. They're not my employees, but they want to show up. They want to be at the events. They want to represent us well, have pride when we do stuff because we've created this culture in the business. And, when people get laid off from their traditional jobs and stuff, and they're able to reach out and say, hey, do you have any work for me? And it's like, I'm in a position where I can temporarily help people by the means of the event world, and that I maybe couldn't do in a different type of business or traditional business.
Interesting. Interesting. How do you balance creativity with logistics in your planning process?
Incredibly hard. There it's being organized, and I think knowing the expectation is the best way. And it's interesting you asked that question because I have a large project I do every holiday that is a two venue installation of a incredible amount of holiday decor, and we have a team of 30 people. I'm logistically coming up with not only the creative side of where things are going to go, what it's going to look like, but then how do we make sure to map it out? And it isn't incredibly challenging, but it's really just utilizing that balance. And I think the hardest part about what you just asked is also, how do I transfer creativity to other people? Because it's extremely hard to take my brain and dump it to other people. But I have to remember that when I'm planning not only the creative side, but the logistics side. So, for example, when we do this setup, it's like, I know that there's a certain number of storage bins that are for one of the venues and not for the other. Now I try to tell people like, hey, we need to grab all of this color because they go over here. Not everybody gets that, right? And then it's like we go, wait, time out. We have to pause. We have to back it up. So now every time I've done it, I've gone, how can I make this better for everybody? Where I'm like, okay, this belongs here. This is the steps we're going to take to get there, and this is the time frame I need you to do it in. And that's what I had to realize is that with creativity, it can go on for hours, right? Like if you're doing a painting, you're constantly touching it, and it might be 3-4 days, and it's like you finally have to go, I'm gonna walk away from it. But in the event space, we're limited to the amount of time. So I have to say, like, yes, I want you all to be creative. I want you to bring it to the table, but also this is the amount of time you have, and you better maximize every minute of it. So it's creating kind of like a checks and balance between the two, because those are using both sides of the brain, right? We know that the left brain, right brain, like one's more logical, one's more creative, but we have to find space where they work together. Otherwise, it's a train derailing on the creative end, and it's a logistical plan completely falling apart because there was no regulation to this side of it. So it's more challenging than it sounds. Figured it out, kind of.
It's so easy to say, but so hard to do, right?
Yeah. And I'm laughing that you asked that question because we just landed another decorating thing. And I had to say, okay, these days we're already booked. And then, all right, we can do your project these days. And I'm looking around their space saying, we could probably do it in a day and a half, and you can open up this day for business. And then I left the meeting saying, my God, what am I doing? It's like my team is going to hate me. They're going to be like, wait, we're doing 4 days worth of decorating, but I was like, hey, we'll just take the business first. I've got 6 months to map out the logistic part of it. So it's like, it's going to be very strategic of where people work, taking breaks, making sure they're hydrated. There's a lot of things that go into it, but all right, we got it.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Thank you.
I think it's part of the challenge of it's a high risk, high reward kind of environment.
And that's true. And on the reward side, some of the events we do are not as rewarding financially, I will say, like, but they are rewarding that we can, for example, the one I just gave of decorating, it's like, the entire team, everybody involved for in a month and a half, they have bragging rights. Number one, like, we did this, right? And then two, it's like the social recognition, because when this thing pops off, it'll be all over TikTok and all over Instagram and stuff like that. And it's so fun for everybody to be like, oh my gosh, did you see this one? And then the creative pieces that we put on it. So we do a lot of hidden little things. It's like, I wonder if somebody's going to notice we put quotes from, Christmas movies on the ceiling. And then when we see that somebody noticed it, it's like just that satisfaction of going, oh my God, they got it. It was only one person, right? But they got it. They saw where we were going with that. It is definitely satisfying.
That's amazing. That is amazing. Can I tell you a story about a bad experience that I had on a venue?
Sure can.
So well, we were the host, so it was our company meeting. We went to the so we delegated everything on them pretty much. So we had some activities that we were going to do, but they take care of food, the venue, everything. Right? So we do the menu sampling. So we choose the food. So I have one employee that doesn't eat fish, doesn't eat anything fancy. So she said, just give me a piece of chicken and I'm going to be fine. I'm like, are you sure we can? There's so many other options. No, that's going to be fine. Just a chicken. Or do you want some sauce? It's like, no sauce. Just a piece of chicken. Okay. So then I go in and I ask the chef one piece of chicken, one plate of chicken. Everything else salmon, right? I want to splurge. It's my company meeting. I want to do something nice. Somehow that became, when we went to the event, it was Christmas event, became half chicken, half salmon. And I was angry about that because it's like, that's not what we paid for. And it wasn't about the money. It was about, I'm trying to give a good experience to my team, right?
The experience. Yeah.
And furthermore, it was cold, super cold, right? So it's been sitting for, I don't know how long, right? So I was more angry about that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Turns out that the chef was doing 5 or 6 events that night,
Geez. Yeah.
and our was the smallest one, so we were not, the biggest,
They
but
didn't
still,
prioritize it. Yeah.
yes, yes. So, and the person that they live in charge didn't know what to do. So my people had to get involved and, kind of figure
Yeah.
things out, right? And do the last minute logistics. There were a few things that happened, but nothing big. But the person that they live in charge froze. She didn't know what to do, right? So that added to to the whole thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I was angry because, we're giving such a bad experience to the people, blah blah blah. And then we asked, after the event, we asked the people, and everybody was happy. It's like
See? Okay.
nobody noticed. You know. So, but I wanted to be angry, but I couldn't anymore because people were happy.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
sometimes that happens. Yeah. But I get that from the side of the planner, the side of the client. You're just like, that's not what I wanted. That's not what I asked for. And you can't change it, right? I mean, the food's already made. That is what it is. But it's good that it translated correctly. Like your intention was still transferred correctly to your customers coming out or to your employees coming out. So
Yeah, people appreciate it anyways. And there was no complaint about the chicken, even though it was cold and overcooked. And it had zero sauce, so it was a piece of chicken.
literally a
I
piece
still
of chicken.
complain. I still complain about the chicken. This happened
Yeah.
many years ago, but I still complain anyway. And those type of things can ruin an event, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. But we had a good experience anyways. Right? Then we start doing events on another place that is further away from the city. My reason to do it there was because it was closer in the city, right? So this is like an hour away from the city. So we had to plan for lodging and everything, right? So it was a little bit more committed.
Yep.
But the place is beautiful. It's like going to the vineyards here in San Francisco, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's that type of experience where you are, in the middle of nowhere, but the view is beautiful. So anyway, next year we did it there. So this venue is for weddings, actually. So it
Is it down
was,
in Guadalajara?
yes, yes. So it was a little bit over. We were underdressed for the venue,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Kind of, because a company meeting was a little bit less formal than a wedding.
Right.
It didn't make sense for us to do a full wedding thing and get everybody
Yeah.
tuxedos and things like that. It was more of a relaxed kind of thing, right? More casual.
Yeah.
So, but the venue was beautiful. So the venue was overdressed compared to us. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And my friend runs that place, and he takes care of all the logistics, all the issues, and
Oh,
he's
that's
he's
cool.
great at that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. So let me ask you, what advice would you give someone starting in event planning?
My advice would be for them to shadow another planner to get the experience of being hands on and of problem solving on site. And then also do an event or two and take your own temperature, meaning step back and realize how you either flowed good or not. And what I mean by that is a lot of people think the idea of planning an event sounds good, or like being a wedding planner and doing their own and things like that, until they realize when they're in the moment they might have, and I should back that up and say, ask somebody who you care about to evaluate you to see what they saw. Because in the moment, they might be running around frazzled and all of this and not realizing that this is really not the job for them, And it's like a lot of people will pretend it is, and they'll start a business and then go, I shut my business down because it just got too stressful. And it's like, well, evaluate it in the beginning. It's not an industry that is normal in the sense that there's no 9 to 5. It's sometimes 12 to 1 a.m., 2 a.m., right? And it's generally every Saturday if you're on the wedding side of things, right? And so people think it sounds glamorous until they get into it and go, "Oh, I don't have any weekends left," or this or that. And then it translates into how they show up at things, and it translates to how they are in their clients. I'm in a lot of like Facebook groups with different planners, and I hear very interesting stories about even just like attitudes people have with their clients and stuff. And it's like, I know for me, when I'm at the peak of my wedding season, like we've done 2 years back to back, we did 68 and then 73 weddings along with corporate events in there. And by the time I got to December, I was like, I can't talk to a single person. I have to check out. Like I knew it. I was like, I can't do it. We're not doing holiday parties. My team knows this year's a little bit different. We're very busy at the end of the year, so it's fine. We switched the program, but A lot of people don't know how to kind of, like I said, take their own temperature in that and understand how their personality can play either to their benefit or against them. And so without jumping in and getting the experience and being put in, a high fire situation, they won't ever know. So my advice is, this is not one of the things that you start and go, oh, I'm going to figure it out. This is a reverse one, which I would normally support that with entrepreneurship. Like, just get a website, get it up and running, and just see what happens. But this industry is a little bit different in that you could be spinning your wheels and then ruin somebody's biggest day because you don't have, the tough skin, you don't have the right attitude, you don't have the right energy, you don't have the right tools, right, to make it successful. So I think that would be my best advice to somebody starting out. And I remember when I was in college and one of my colleagues asked for me to give her the advice of, what I saw in her when we did events and should she, start a business. And I told her this kind of the same thing. I said, no, you run around like frazzled and look like a maniac. Like, this is probably not the industry for you. And she ended up starting a wedding company that, you know, she did okay, but now maybe she does 3 or 4 weddings a year. So it's not what she lives off of, which is fine. But if you want to do it as a hobby, but it was like it fizzled out because again, she didn't really have that strong what it takes to do it.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you. I mean, it sounds glamorous, but then when you're into it, it requires a lot of grit and persistence, and there's going to be
And
fires all the time.
yeah, and when you have like clients that tell you like, "Hey, move these chairs over here," and you look at them like, "Not my job," but at the same time, it's like the job is the job. I've been in that situation a lot. And when I first started the business, it was interesting because I was younger. I was in my 20s. And so, most of my clients are in their 30s, 40s plus. And so I kind of was treated like a kid a little bit. And so I was kind of like, yeah, I'll move a chair, like no big deal. And then I hit a place somewhere where, and I think it was the people around me, my ego got really, really big. And I was like, I'm not touching a chair. Like, I don't do that. I'm not breaking a nail. And so I would literally get an attitude at somebody's wedding. This was a very short window of time, but I would get an attitude. And the people around me were telling me, like, oh, you're a boss and this and this and this, and it was like, yeah, you're right. I'm the boss. And then now I'm on the other side again where I'm like, I could care less. Like, if I need to move the chair, I'll move the chair. Like, I have no problem heavy lifting. And even the way people treat me with, I'm an OG now in the industry. So my couples that are like in their 20s and their parents that are talking to me, it's like, no, 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 we're a little more at the same level here. Hold on a second. And so I've learned how to hold my ground, but also make people feel pleasant about it. And it's interesting with my daughter. I've taken her to some weddings just because circumstantially I had to when she was born, and I'm still breastfeeding her. And, it's like, hey, we got to go. I had somebody with me. So it wasn't like carrying her around the whole time. It was interesting that I was shamed by some mothers, like mothers of the brides. And it was like, my attention in a very strange way because I was thinking to myself, how in 2024 are you shaming another mother? Especially a woman who had kids in like the 90s when women were getting back in the workforce regularly. And so it's been a really interesting experience of how some people take it as like, hey, we support entrepreneurship. It's cool. Your daughter's here. She's so cute. Like, I got baby fever. And then there's other people that are like, that's really unprofessional. And it's like, just the two sides to it. But it takes me back to the way people treat others, back to that example of moving a chair. Those people that are shaming me are the same people who would be like, oh, somebody threw up in the corner, you're cleaning that up. No, I'm not. It's not my job. That's somebody else's job. Right. But we have this idea of like, you're serving me, so you work for me. And I've had to temper it, like I said, but I always look at all the events I do. I'm like, as much as I would love to stay friends with people after the fact, when it comes to the weddings, generally, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But at the end of the day, when it's over, it's over. And we're here for this moment. And so it's like not really getting caught up in even the joys and the pains. I used to get really, really high when an event would be good. I'd be like, oh my God, they loved me. Everybody said they loved it. And then a couple days later, that ether wore off. And it was kind of like, oh, I feel like I'm depressed. Like, I need another win. And again, I've been able to temper that. And I think that goes for all entrepreneurship. It's like, it's easy to get like super excited. And then when maybe the contract doesn't go through or the deposit doesn't come, then you tank. And then it's like, oh, do I have what it takes? Oh, wait, here's another. Oh, wait. So, this is globally speaking on entrepreneurship in general. It's a ride, and you got to be ready to temper yourself and check yourself along the journey to say like, hey, am I keeping it in the right perspective? Am I doing what I need to do because eventually it'll all level out? Or am I just going as sporadic as the business is? you get too much business and you start buying an office and hiring a bunch of people, not realizing you have to sustain it. And then you're like, oh crap, right? Anyway, I don't know what the question was. It took me all the way here, but we just traveled into it. There you go.
Yeah, we were talking about advice. So yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with you that some people take the baby as a you're a professional. Well, we were discussing this before, right? I take it as celebration of life, right? And it's part of who we are. So I think it's something positive, right? What I'm trying to say is I try not to hide the baby, right, or the babies, right? Because I think it's part of who each of us are, right? So yeah, and shaming, I don't think that's positive, right?
It's taken me on a interesting journey. I was like, wow, they said what? Okay.
Yeah, and as you said, you have to not get caught up because you're trying to give them a memorable experience, and if you get caught up on the argument, then you are contributing to that bad experience. Awesome. So what's next for you and Magnificent events?
We're just continuing to grow the business. We do have a podcast that's going to be coming out soon that is called the Being
Nice.
Magnificent Podcast, where we'll talk about the tales of a wedding planner and tales of a mommy planner. So some of these stories of things that have happened at weddings and events, along with some of the instances where, things have been questionable with my daughter, or even, just talking about like parenting stuff in general, good diapers, bad diapers, whatever. But that is something that's coming out. We have a children's book coming out that is based on a real story of my daughter losing her shoe right here where we live. So that I'm going to tie it into the Magnificent Events brand somehow, but that is another thing in the works. We've got a wellness retreat that we're doing in December with Elavana Wellness Retreats. That is a partnership that we've taken on as being the second creator of that, co-creator, co-founder. So we're excited about that. And then we also are doing a comedy show. A partner of mine that does comedy said, he tried to just get a referral out of me, and I gave him the information. And he said, never mind, I want to do it with you. So now it's our businesses together. Magnificent Events presents Buckle Gang Comedy. That's going to be coming to the San Jose, California area soon, once a quarter. A lot of really fun stuff, along with just the normal events that we do. So, if you're on here and you want to follow us, it's Magnificent Events on all channels, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all the things. We're there on them. Now we try to keep up with socials, try to keep people updated on cool things that are happening, and giving out, wedding tips and stuff like that. That's mostly on TikTok. If you're getting married and you want to know how to not mess up your wedding day, follow us. You might hear some good advice.
Amazing, amazing. Yeah, a lot of things. We're going to put all the links on the episode podcast so people can reach out.
Yeah. Excellent.
Thank you very much, Krista, for joining us today.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.